The movie begins with Claire, a young photographer going on a trip to Berlin to look at their beautiful environment. Upon arrival, she walks to her lodge and meets several other young people there. She joins them in a club-like place on the rooftop, where they all have fun until morning. The next morning, she goes out alone and takes pictures of the beautiful buildings and their occupants. She enjoys her sight and eventually enters an art library where she looks at all the beautiful images. Another man enters the library too, but doesn't talk to her at all. Afterwards, she leaves the library while waiting by the road to cross. Andy deliberately drops his book, prompting her to bend down and retrieve it for him. She holds his strawberries while Andy talks to her, asking if she likes them for their supposed stress relief benefits. She questions his assumption about her mental state. He notes that solo travel is for those with thoughts to ponder. She realizes he's aware of her being alone, and his proficiency in English facilitates effortless communication. He takes her on a tour to a different place, sharing that he visits to complicate rather than contemplate life. She graciously corrects him for his English mistake, and after having a fun day, he takes her home. They nearly kiss, and she invites him to the rooftop bar, but he declines. That night, she gazes at his photo, eager for another encounter, and heads to the library the next day. Luckily, they cross paths once more amidst the library shelves, sparking a conversation. They instantly pick up where they left off the previous day, and he notices she intentionally ignores her mother's call. She shares with him her desire for freedom, explaining that it led her to book a flight and leave her hometown. Revealing her necklace and its linked ring, a gift from her mother, she confides that connecting the two pieces of jewelry signals distress, and her mother will be there for her. That evening, Andy decides to drive her to his home. On their way, he locks the car door, and they eventually arrive at his house, which is on the outskirts of the city. They first enter the desolate house before getting to another back room and an inner room in the back house. He opens the door, and she enters without suspecting anything. While Andy prepares a drink, Claire attempts to open the window, but it's stuck. Andy soon comes and he touches her from behind. They get intimate and start kissing. They get to the bed, where they eventually have intercourse. After a great time, she expresses a desire to stay in Berlin rather than proceeding to her next destination. The following day, Andy leaves for work. He requests Franca, one of his students, to elucidate a poem on the whiteboard. Her explanation is so impressive that he is thoroughly amazed. While at home, Claire prepares to leave but discovers she's unable to do so, as she finds herself locked inside. Unaware of any issues, she decides to wait until Andy returns, and then inquires about the keys. When Andy returns, he apologizes, admitting he mistakenly thought he left the key on the dresser. She jokingly asks if he intentionally locked her in, and he responds yes. They start making out in the shower again, and the following morning, before Andy leaves, he drops the key for her on the dresser. When Claire wakes, she tries to prepare food for herself, and she sees a photo of herself when she is sleeping, and she sees an inscription, "Mine," on the back. She confirms Andy wrote the words and took the naked picture, and she also notices her necklace and ring are missing. Without delay, she begins searching for it. Upon realizing its absence, she tries to open the door using the key provided by Andy, only to find that it doesn't fit. She gets scared, and she takes her phone. She charges it and notices her SIM card is missing too. Panicked, she grabs a chair and attempts to shatter the window, only to discover that there's an additional section beneath the initial one that remains unbreakable. She remains in this paranoid state until Andy arrives, bringing her flowers. She begs him to let her go, but he refuses, telling her that she is the one who wishes to remain in Berlin. But she argues it was just an after-intimate conversation, and she doesn't even mean it. He's angry because she wrecked things in his newly purchased house. In their confrontation, he strikes her down, cautioning that the house is deserted, and her screams won't reach anyone. He eventually ties her to the bed before leaving to visit his father. He tells his father about Claire, but his father asks him about his girlfriend Natalie, and he says Natalie has returned to Canada. His father questions why he consistently chooses to befriend tourists rather than locals, but he explains that Claire has no plans to leave Berlin. He returns home with a puzzle for Claire, and also a love frame. He unties her after she messes up the bed, assuring her not to worry about her mother, as he has already informed her that everything is going well. He also informs her that he has told his father about their relationship. Claire goes to have her bath, and she sees blonde hair in the bathtub, and realizes that someone else was in that situation before her. She becomes increasingly fearful, yet the following day she pleads with Andy not to tie her up, emphasizing that there's nowhere she can go. At school, one of Andy's colleagues uses his communion cup. When she tries to clean it, he requests her to hand it over, but she refuses, leading to his frustration. At home, Claire searches the house and sees a screwdriver. When Andy returns, he sees Claire solving the puzzle, and he joins her. When he gets distracted, she stabs his hand into the table and runs away. Unfortunately, the front door is jammed and Andy catches up. In anger, he slams the door, crushing her fingers. In shock, she faints and he carries her back. The next day, Claire tries to reconcile with Andy, but he seems uninterested and takes a photo of her before returning to work. At school, Andy conducts sports training for his students and gets turned on by one of his female students, Franca. Meanwhile, at home, Claire searches the house and attempts to unlock the door with a paperclip, but fails. She fears that Andy will find out when he returns, and she shivers. Andy returns home and checks on Claire and is glad that her wound has recovered. He takes her to the bathroom to have her bath, and suddenly he hears a knock from Franca. He warns Claire not to shout, claiming he will kill Franca if she does. He opens the door and Franca says she saw him enter and thought about visiting. Claire shows herself in a towel to Franca, and Andy tells Franca Claire is his girlfriend. He sends Franca off in a hostile way. As Claire inquires about Franca, he starts trimming her hair and takes a picture of her. Later, he gets angry after learning that Claire had attempted to escape, and he angrily takes away all the sharp objects in the house. As time passes, Claire gets used to this new lifestyle, but she taunts him with it every time, calling him abnormal, and he hits her in anger. After such an encounter, one night, he leaves her in the house and goes to his father's house. It's Christmas season, and it's cold. Claire finds herself alone at home, taking care of herself. Unfortunately, the heater malfunctions, leaving her to endure the cold for a significant period of time. She wonders if he had abandoned her there, too. She also finds a red nail from his previous girlfriend. Meanwhile, Andy's father passes on. After he deals with the burial, he returns home and confides in Claire. They have intercourse that day, and she consoles him about his father's death. He brings her books and also his father's dog, and they live in peace until she asks about the previous girlfriend, which gets him furious. One day, Andy takes Claire out of the house to the forest. She's so excited, but he intends to hit her with an axe. Before he does that, a boy screams for help because his brother is injured. Andy goes to tend to the injured boy while Claire begs the other boy to call the police. But it turns out that he doesn't understand Claire's language, and he leaves with his mother. Andy angrily takes Claire to his car's boot and brings her back. He also takes Claire's dog away because her relationship with the dog gets so close that gets him annoyed. While Andy is away, Claire enters his secret room, where she finds a photo album of her. She also finds another album of pictures of his previous girlfriend being abused. That night, Andy attempts to engage in some playful banter with a fellow tourist, unintentionally mixing up the words contemplate and complicate. However, their interaction comes to an end when her friend calls for her. Claire also sees a man around their window, and she calls the man's attention. The man enters the building, and she uses her screams to direct him to the door. As he tries to open it, Andy arrives and kills the man. He accuses Claire of being the cause of his death, and blackmails her into wrapping the body with him, before disposing of it. He spends the night cleaning up the mess afterward. In the next scene, Andy spots the missing person poster of Claire in the newspaper, and he asks Claire to pack her loads because he wants to fumigate the house. Claire notices Franca's handbook, and she intentionally burns her hand while stealing the handbook when Andy is attending to her. The next day, Andy packs outside, distributes the student handbook at school, and Franca discovers Claire's distressing photo. She executes herself and rides to Andy's house, but the photo slips and Andy discovers it. Consequently, he drives back home but gets stuck in traffic. Andy gets home and sees Franca's bike and a broken window. He finds his room empty, and Claire isn't there. Furious, he goes around searching for them. Moments later, Claire calls for his attention and locks him inside the house. She retrieves her chain and ring and also helps Franca out while they escape. At the movie's end, Claire is seen enjoying her new freedom around the cities while Andy is still locked in his house, resting on his massage chair. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Leave a like to help the channel out. Also leave a comment if you'd like us to recap your favorite movie. Thanks for watching.